So the FNaF movie has proven to be a success, both in terms of audience reception and the box office, which means that we're getting a second and third film. But what could potentially be happening in the second and third film? Why don't we speculate on that? Yo, what's up gamers? It's me, KipsterMc, and the FNaF movie is finally out, and while the critics aren't the biggest fans of it, the audience definitely enjoys this. And in fact, this movie's actually done really well at the box office, grossing well over 150 million on its first weekend alone, on a budget of only 20 million. I'd say even just that one weekend is enough to warrant 2 sequels, which is what we're most likely getting. So I figure, why not speculate on what could be happening in the 2 sequels. I'm going to be basing this speculation off of 3 things. What we already know from the events of the first movie, events that happened in the games that could fit into the movie universe, and what's been said by director Emma Tammy regarding the 2 sequels. Now, I will mention spoilers for the first movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this video and wait until after you see the movie. But if you already have seen it, then enjoy these ideas. Now for the second movie, I'm going to start with what I think is definitely going to happen. So first off, the puppet is definitely going to be heavily involved in some way. How do we know this? Because of the end credits of the first movie, there's no post-credit scene featuring the puppet, but you do hear the puppet's music box playing during the end credits. Not to mention, you hear the FNaF 2 minigame style spelling out, which says the phrase, "Come find me," which, when combined with the puppet's music box playing, indicates that it's the puppet itself saying, "Come find me." So I think it's kind of obvious where this is leading to. And not to mention, I also think I know who the puppet is going to be possessed by. Garrett. Because aside from the 5 missing children, Garrett is the only other dead kid who is mentioned in the first film, and I doubt they would have the puppet be possessed by someone new in the second film. Not to mention, in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, director Emma Tammy did tease that there would be more to come with the storyline for Garrett in the sequel, so I think the puppet would just make the most sense. Now another thing that I think is definitely going to happen in the third film is the return of Mike, Abby, and Vanessa, the 3 main leads from the first film. Now Mike is obvious, he's the main protagonist of the first film, it only makes sense that he comes back in the second. And then Abby also, since she is Mike's sister and thus lives with him, it makes sense that she'd be returning as well. Vanessa's gonna be a bit tricky because in the first film she is unconscious in the hospital due to being stabbed by her father, William, but I feel like she'll most likely wake up in the second film at some point and make a recovery in order to return. Now, I'm not entirely sure if she'd still be a good guy, or if they'd go the route of having her turn to Vanny, but I don't think Vanny would be likely in the second film, or in the movie universe at all, really. I don't think that would suit her character, even though that's who Vanessa becomes in the games, but, you know, game Vanessa and movie Vanessa are already pretty different. Now, the other 2 things I think are definitely going to happen in the second film are some more clarification on what happened with Aunt Jane, since it's not clear if she died or was just knocked unconscious at the end of the film by Golden Freddy. And in the same interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Emma Tammy did also tease that there would be some more clarification on what happened with Aunt Jane. And then the other thing that I think is definitely happening is some kind of appearance from Springtrap. Now, I don't know if he would be in it for long, or if he would just be in it at the very end, either right before the end credits or in a mid or post-credits scene to set up for the third film as kind of a cliffhanger. Since Matthew Lillard did sign a 3-picture deal, but at the same time, I think having Springtrap be in the entirety of the second film would be the filmmakers playing their cards too soon with him. I think having Springtrap play a major role will be more suited for the third film. More on that later. Now, in terms of stuff that may happen but is not guaranteed, first of all, there are 3 different locations from the games that I think could appear in the second film, and all for different reasons. First is going to be a reopening of Freddy Fazbear's, since Emma Tammy stated in an interview with Variety that they may base the second movie off of the second game, but also that could be something else entirely instead, since anything could happen, which, yeah, she's right. This is FNaF. Anything could happen. Remember when the second story in this book, In the Flesh, had a Springtrap male pregnancy story in it? This franchise is unhinged! Okay, but in all seriousness, I feel like a grand reopening of Freddy's is entirely possible, although it's not necessarily guaranteed. And if they don't do a second phrase location, I think Circus Babies would also be a possible location too, largely due to the fact that if Circus Babies were to appear in the movie universe, I think putting it into the second film would be the best fit. Maybe Mike and Vanessa go there to investigate what's going on because they suspect that it might have something to do with William Afton, but not be entirely sure. Now, if Circus Babies appears, then that would also mean the Fun Times would appear as well, but if it's the second phrase location instead, then we would be getting the toy animatronics. I think either set of animatronics would be cool to see in live action, although I personally would prefer to see the Fun Times since I think they would fill the villain role better for the movie, and also I think they would look better in live action than the toys, admittedly. And the third location I think could potentially appear in the movie is Fredbear's Family Diner. Either some flashbacks that flesh out William's story some more since we don't get much screen time of him in the first film, admittedly, or maybe at one point Mike and or Vanessa goes to the Fredbear's location in the present where it's all run down in order to do a bit of investigating. And speaking of William's past, I think we could potentially get Henry in the second film. Maybe either he goes to visit Mike or Mike goes to visit Henry so that we could learn some more information about William and Henry's past and why William was so crazy. And if not, then we could also get Henry scenes and potential flashbacks with William. Now, I already speculated beforehand that Henry could appear in the first movie, and I was wrong on that, but you know what? I'm willing to make the guess again, and we got at least a year to find out if I'm wrong. I'm saying at least a year because, while Blumhouse movies don't usually take too long to get made, it could also take time for a script to be made, because we all know how long Saul Kaufman took on that first script. Yeah, so like a general idea of what I think the story could be is that either a new phrase location or Circus Babies opens up, so Mike goes to investigate and see what's going on there. Vanessa wakes up and helps Mike out. Then they may visit Henry and or Fredbear's to get some more answers as to what's going on. And then they'll have a showdown with either the Fun Time or Toy Animatronics depending on the location. And then after the showdown, there will then be a Springtrap reveal at the end. And this will set up either a cliffhanger or a sequel hook for the third film. And now onto the third film. The only thing that I think is going to be guaranteed is that it'll have the final showdown with Springtrap. Everything else is kind of a bit more guesswork since it'll largely depend on what happens in the second film. And my predictions for the second film may be completely wrong. It could just end up adapting in the flesh. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. That is not a story that needs to be seen in live action. That's not a story that needed to even exist in the first place. But you know what, if I'm speculating, maybe the third film will mainly be based off of FNaF 3. Maybe Fazbear's Fright is set up, and Springtrap is brought there as an attraction. Then Mike and Vanessa, if they're both still alive after the second film, will be involved. Maybe they set up Fazbear's Fright as a trap, or they're once again investigating. Or maybe Mike's just that desperate for a job again. And hey, if Henry's also in the movie universe, and Fazbear's Fright is a trap for William, and possibly any other possessed animatronics, maybe all three of them could have set up the trap together. I think also if they're gonna base off of FNaF 3, there will probably be a bit of a time jump. Maybe not like a super long one, since I feel like we'd probably still keep the same main cast, although they'd have to recast Abby if they did a time jump, assuming she'd still be alive in the third film and they did a time jump. Because, you know, I feel like if you do a time jump, a younger person is going to not look that young compared to an older person. Just saying. But I don't really think a time jump would have to be too necessary. You still get the rotting carcass of Springtrap regardless. Like the Silver Eyes trilogy, for example, had Springtrap show up only a year after the Springlock failure, and he was already pretty rotted with exposed bone and muscle. And we even see this design in the graphic novel, and I think it actually looks more terrifying than Game Springtrap, just due to the fact that, like, you can actually tell it's a rotting body inside the animatronic as opposed to just meat tubes around the endoskeleton. But hey, anything's better than Scraptrap with his peanut-looking head. I feel like whatever still remaining animatronics will show up at Fazbear's Fright in the third movie if Fazbear's Fright happens. And the reason for doing so will depend on one of two things. Option one, if it's not a trap and was an actual attraction made by, like, someone who is a fan of the restaurant, the animatronics are just gonna go in because they have a bone to pick with William. Reason 2, if it's a trap set up by the protagonist, then the animatronics will be lured in by the protagonist. I feel like if they go for the Fazbear's Fright route, we'll probably get a fire at the end, resulting in the destruction of Springtrap and the remaining animatronics. Possibly with a speech similar to the FNaF 6 one, which, yeah, there's one line in that speech that I think really deserves to be in the movie universe. You know, this speech right here.
Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
That line is so good. But yeah, based on the speculation, I think a possible storyline for a third film could be Mike, Vanessa, and maybe Henry creating Fazbear's Fright as a way to lure in Springtrap and the remaining animatronics, and then they have to survive from them while setting up a trap to set the place on fire, destroying all the animatronics. Now, if they do this, I don't know if any of the human characters would stay in the building as it burned down. And if this is how they end the movie universe, I think the end credits music should be the FNaF 3 Good Ending theme, with the visuals for the end credits being shots of different areas of Fazbear's Frights burning and the animatronics themselves burning as well, to signify that this is the end, and the spirits themselves are now going to be put to rest now that their killer is truly gone. But yeah, all of this is speculation. There is no guarantee any of what I've said could happen. Could it work for the movies? Yeah, probably so. It would fit in with what we've gotten so far, too. But you know, it's like director Emma Tammy said, anything could happen. It's FNaF after all. So yeah, that's it for my speculation. Let me know what you think in the comments below, how likely you think these ideas I gave are, what you would want to see in the second and third film, and what you would not want to see in the second and third film. And if you enjoyed this video and want to support my content, don't forget to like, dislike, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'll be back in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed FNaF Movie Month.